With South Carolina Congressman Jeff Duncan. He's a member of the Energy and Commerce Committee. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thanks very much for being here. What are you expecting out of this meeting today from several oil companies, and why isn't Joe Biden there?
Well, first off, thanks for having me on this morning. There is a war on energy, and it's not a war in Ukraine. It's the Biden's war on energy. I'm glad the oil executives are coming. What they will say is it's a supply and demand issue. Joe Biden came in and limited supply. They ended leases on federal lands. They ended future lease sales. There's no 5-year drilling plan. So the markets react to that, and the price of oil goes up based on the limited supply and a rising global demand as we come out of this post-pandemic economy.
So the president claims that he's doing everything that he can to get oil prices lower. And yet, you know, so far, he hasn't really moved the needle, whether it's the Strategic Petroleum Reserve or now Jennifer Granholm says that the president could use the Defense Production Act as a, quote, tool against high gasoline prices, Congressman. Is any of this going to work? They are doing anything they can not to reverse their decisions on day one to kill fossil fuel.
Well, everything is either gimmicky or is draconian. The Defense Production Act is not designed for this. The Biden administration killed the American energy renaissance that we are experiencing that had gasoline prices around $2.39 a gallon when the first of 2021, when right before he took office. I think on the day he took office in South Carolina, it was about $2.19 a gallon. They're wanting to do a gas tax holiday, which would save American families about $7, the price of 1 gallon in many states. The Defense Production Act is not designed for this. This is all gimmicky. It's like releasing oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve had a minimal effect on the price of oil. What we need to do is unleash the American energy producers, allow them to drill on public land, offshore, anywhere that we have those resources. We're blessed in this nation with abundant natural resources, but unfortunately we're cursed by liberal politicians who are taking those resources off the table and are doing nothing to help the American people. I can tell you this, House Republicans on Energy and Commerce, led by Kathy McMorris Rodgers, have real solutions to help lower the price at the pump and help energy costs across the board for Americans.
Well, you talk about Republicans. You know, there are 14 Republicans in the Senate who just went along with those liberal senators to usher in new gun control. Top House Republicans are speaking out against the bipartisan gun control bill. It advanced in the Senate. GOP whip Steve Scalise pressing Republicans to vote against it. And you've got Republican and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy pledging opposition to this. He says, I will oppose the Senate bill because provisions in it would place additional unnecessary impediments and burdens on law-abiding citizens' right to own a firearm, he told the Federalist. Where is this going?
Well, it'll get a very icy reception by House Republicans when it gets over here. The text released by the Senate on Tuesday night is being seen very negatively across the board, both by House Republicans and folks across the country, because it continues to erode the Second Amendment constitutional rights of Americans. I think Kevin McCarthy and Steve Scalise have been very succinct in their messaging here. If you look at the number of Senate Republicans that supported this, a lot of those aren't seeking re-election. They're unaccountable to the voters anymore, and so sure, they're going along. But this is rushed. We need to have a serious conversation in this country about real solutions, and that is maybe using some of the COVID money that's left over in the states to harden schools and provide school security before we start eroding American Second Amendment rights. Law-abiding citizens here. This bill will do nothing to address the solutions and would not do anything to have affected Buffalo or Uvalde, Texas shootings.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with your former colleague, Doug Collins, this morning. Doug, why are these Republicans going along, strengthening the Democrats' hand, going into the midterm elections and weakening their own chances with this gun legislation?
Well, Maria, I think it goes back to something Jeff said. It's just they're going along with it because some of them don't have to worry about it in an election. But it's also that thing that I've said many times before is when, you know, what feels good may not heal you. And I do have a question for Jeff. I said there's something in this bill that without all these hearings, you don't get the scrutiny. And there's a big provision that basically is a backdoor universal background check here where they're changing what a gun dealer is from someone who does the standard being livelihood to making it just a profit. I'd love to hear, is that being talked about on the Hill? I mean, that seems to have been snuck through here.
Well, it is part of this legislation. We understand the backdoor universal gun checks that would affect the private sales. If you and I are friends, if I wanted to sell you a firearm, I couldn't do it without having a background check. It changes a lot of terms. It's just a way of getting a foot in the door so they can have universal background checks and really start getting gun registration and everything that the Democrats want to do to try to control Americans. I'm concerned about the red flag laws, Doug and Maria, because it seems like in the Democrats' mind across the board, you're guilty until you prove your innocence. And in America, it's not that way. You're innocent until you prove your guilt, until they prove your guilt.
Yes, of course. Of course. Congressman, it's great points that you make. Thanks very much for being here this morning. We'll be watching that meeting with the oil CEOs today. Congressman Jeff Duncan joining us in D.C. Thank you, Jeff Duncan.